Good morning, afternoon, good evening, good day. See you. Right. Right. If you haven't tuned in, I'm Sean. 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 Right. Where did that go? There, that's probably gone. Sorry about that, Victor. The trick is not to capture browser audio. Just don't capture yourself in the browser. So last week I was involved with Crawl for the Cure for Jerry Stefik memorial in honor of Jerry. Passed away from cancer some years ago, and was asked to play in a Dungeon Crawl Classics game run by Edwin Nagy. Beware of the Yule Cat. It was fun, amusing. My buddy Hobbs had joined with us, so just needed some beats added to it. Yeah. I have a tweet to put out today. It's been 1 year. December 17th, 2021. I put out on Gaming and BS's Twitter account, what games are you going to get to the table in 2022? So I need to put that out today to see if people will see it and reply to whether they got the games to the table. We brought this up in a stream prior, so we'll see. Oh, excuse me. Of course, I've got a cough when I go live. Hoos is up and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at the 6 a.m. strike. Holy cow. That's dedication, folks. That's all I got to say. Dedication. What is the entry question? The entry question for today's stream. So every week we do something like, what's your favorite class? Let's see. And we had a couple too that I should have wrote down that we didn't use. So we had more than one in 1 week. Oof. Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking like what is the most popular game other than D&D, because that's the biggest one. What's the most popular game known in your circles that you would not want to play for some reason? But I don't know if that's really, I don't know if I want to do that one. I've obviously given this a lot of thought. Oh, yeah, I swear. I tell ya. Hope everybody had a good week this week. It's got to be like holiday season for some, like holiday season. Got to be close to. A lot of people should be starting to take off from work. Favorite RPG tool? Yeah, that's one. Should start a list for you for sure. I definitely need some crowdsourcing for some of these things. A good idea, Victor. What a ingenious idea. See, even a better idea. There you go. What do you call your hobby to those outside the hobby? That's a good one. Because there's been talk about that, right? I think I put like I only play analog RPGs. It's a good one, I guess. What do you call your hobby when somebody says like, and I get this all the time, and I think many of us do. Like, I'm not the only one, obviously, but it's always a video game. I literally had a woman that I interviewed in my day job, and she was referred over to me by someone that I talked to, and the reason they knew each other was the short story is they knew each other from a boot camp that they went to, a developer boot camp. So if you're not familiar in the software engineering, software developer space, you can go to a 4-year college, a 2-year college. You can learn on your own, and then there's these boot camps that you pay. Some are quite expensive, and some. This one happened to be nonprofit, so it's not overly expensive. They put you through like 40 hours a week of kind of online or classroom instruction and crash in a developer, teach you how to develop software or web. And they had both gone there. She had seen my profile on LinkedIn, and in my profile, my company name, my phone number, literally in the header, and then I put Game Master. And of course, some people that they notice that, and some people don't, or they know the relevance, and some people don't. She happened to notice and said, "Oh, and I play." I think she said she plays quite a bit of D&D or role-playing games. So I'm like, great. So we get on the phone, we're talking, and I said, this is how we got together, just to refresh your memory. And, oh, by the way, I remember you saying that you're a gamer. And she says, yes. And I said, so what? You play Dungeons and Dragons? Yeah. And so a few others. And I said, oh, which ones? And she's like, well, I'm a big fan of Skyrim, but I haven't completed it. Morning, Jason. I was just like, ugh. And then she mentioned a few others that I'm not well versed in, like on the video game side. So it's even when it's premised as like RPGs, it's always this struggle of computer versus tabletop. And who says Charmin? So, I mean, so the question of the day is, if you ran into somebody and said, "Oh, what's your hobby? What do you do when you're not working? What do you do for fun?" What do you tell them? What's your pitch in a sentence or two? Like, what's your initial? What do you initially say? Mine is, "Hey, I play tabletop role playing games, not video games. They're the ones with pen, paper, and dice," which is even weird now because I don't know when the last time is I rolled dice. Oh yeah, my son plays that. Like Dragon Age, and which could be either one, which will be more prevalent nowadays. You got to specify. Does he play the one with the book, or does he play the one on the Xbox, PS5? Tabletop role playing games, and then games like D&D. Yeah, it's and I get those that say, and I will start out with like tabletop role playing games, and they'll go, oh, because I'll say, and I chalk it up, and I try to premise it with like, I'm an uber nerd. That's what I usually say. Like, I'm uber nerd. I talked to a program senior director, product management. Yeah, I think, or product owner or something. He's a director level. We were talking, and I think I was actually doing a Zoom call from this setup. And they're like, wow. I said, I usually don't do it from here. And he's like, so you do podcasts? I said, yes, I did one for 7 years. Oh, what was it about? And I'm like, well, it's now, I'm an Uber nerd. This is how I kind of preface this and say, hey, set it up, right? So I play tabletop role-playing games, and I did a 7-year podcast with like 400 episodes. Oh, role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons. Yes, Dungeons and Dragons. We can't get away from it. Can't get away from it. Woodworking. Jason, get out of here. Oh, man. Good morning, Ty. Today we're talking about 5th edition all day for 2 hours straight, just for you, Ty. Like Victor says, I've also said it's something really geeky. If I don't really want to spend much of the time explaining, or if I don't think they really care but are asking just to be polite. Well, yes, and I think I'm an Uber nerd. Like, I'm not just video games, because I don't think that's overly nerdy. So I think that's why I try to like get them context. Yeah, so there you go. There you go. What do we need to talk about? We skipped a week. Last week, again, I started off just a few minutes ago saying I played in an actual play. Corey Welsh asked me. He puts on these like events like I don't know if it's necessarily during a specific season, because he's done it at Game Hole Con, same relative time frame, I guess. And then he does some online, but he was a good friend of Jerry Stefik, and Jerry succumbed to cancer years ago, and so Corey's taken up the torch to run fundraiser games, whether it be at a convention or online streaming, to raise money for cancer, and donating all the proceeds to the American Cancer Society. He raised their goal was at 5,000, and I think when we kicked it off, we got pretty high. I think we got like up to $2,000 pretty quick. And I tuned in. There were 4 games last week, Saturday, the 10th of December, 2022. There were 4 games running, 1 4-hour, 1 4-hour, 1 4-hour, 1 4-hour. So 16 hours in one day. That guy is a beast. I think he ran the whole show, the whole day, starting at 8 a.m. Central Time. And so people were donating to do different things, name my character, different names. And then I think I tuned into like the second stream or the third one, and they were about halfway, or maybe $3,000. And that $2,000 seems like a leap. Like it's a pretty steep hill. But he ended up getting up like to $4,900. I think was what he came up with. So I got to give kudos to Corey. I got to give kudos to you guys that helped get us there. So thank you if you donated. If you missed it, that's okay. If you've got charities of your own, by all, good, great. But it was fun. Hobbs was in on the game. It was the Beware of the Yule Cat, of a light. And it's chaos. I can't understand how Edwin can run that game, because you have people paying money. Things are like in another chat that says, hey, now everybody gets advantage, or everybody gets, screwed in this manner. So he has to look at that, know what's going on, narrate that, apply that rule in real time, and then actually listen to what we're doing. Jason lists hobbies on my resume: tabletop games and game design, woodworking, writing, and running. I was always on the fence of resumes that do that, or people that list hobbies on their resume. I don't know. I guess it's a nice touch. Maybe it gives something to somebody to connect to. One of the guys I placed years ago put down, what did he say? Greyhawk? Eberron? I can't remember, but it was something like RPGs and listed as campaign setting, I think, which led into a conversation. So usually those situations are when I'm communicating with someone my parents' age. Isn't that true? Like, I guess it depends on who asks you, right, Sean? What your hobbies are. My mom, the boomers. Okay, boomer. Video game? No, D&D. What's that? The game that your generation tried to squash for us. Thanks. Not the whole generation. So it says after the show I leave to go see Avatar 2. Oh, well, that's great, man. Have fun. I am not a big James Cameron fan. Terminator 2, maybe. But first Avatar, I'm perplexed. Titanic, I never saw. I am perplexed at the amount of people that watch his films. And I don't know. He does some, I guess, interesting things, but they just don't blow me away to the point of like the audience numbers he gets. But whatever, to each their own, I suppose, right? Like Victor says, I think they said it had ended around $1,000 then last year. It was still shy of the $5,000 goal. Yep. Morning, Roger. That's how I should explain that to them, Victor says. Those satanic games you tried to ban? Yeah, those. Right. For sure. What's up, Michael? Morning. Jay says, if the hiring manager has a preference for low fantasy and you list Eberron as your jam, you're absolutely screwed. Well, isn't that right? Like, what if you put D&D on there and you got some weird satanic panic hiring manager, right? You run the risk, man. Jason, you might not have got that job, and you don't even know. So, yeah, satanic panic. Ty mentioned his experience with it. There's deniers out there that like, oh, it wasn't that bad. You guys are just a bunch of bullshit, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what? Wow. Okay. I suppose. Yeah, we make it up for the hell of it. 60 Minutes didn't do an expose on it, and click tracks wasn't a thing. I don't know. To what end, right? To voice how oppressed we were? I don't know. What do you do? What's your favorite hobby? How do you explain that to somebody? That's kind of the question. I think there's a theme. I think we can all agree it's usually like, well, it depends on who asks. If it's a younger person, probably going to know or grok it. And then there's those that aren't. Then you have to explain it. Then there's ones that confuse it with video games. And, nobody's going to know what OSR is. Nobody's going to know what Swords and Wizardry is or, Forbidden Lands. They're just not. That's why our hobby's so small. Which we might talk about today. We'll see. The panic thing very much depended on where you grew up and what circles you rolled in. I agree. There was buzz in ours. And I think my mother, I distinctly remember my mother. So my mother's a retired postal worker. That's where I get my angst from. And it's easy postal workers. And I remember she came back from work. She worked nights and she knew I was interested in this game, got this book. And she talked about it with her coworkers for some reason. I don't know how it came up. Like, what's your son's hobbies? Well, he plays tabletop role-playing games. games. Oh, what's that? Well, you know D&D? And I think so at the post office at the time, obviously my mom was much younger because I was younger. So her peer group was probably 20 to 35 years old at work, like some of her colleagues. And she just thought it was completely, I don't know if it was fascinating, but she was very impressed for sure that her 12, 13-year-old kid was playing games that the people that she worked with that were 20 to 35 were playing. Like there was some strange level of, I don't know if it was like maturity, or not saying I'm smart or was smart or am smart, but I think there's a level of intelligence to grok a game at that age that was just as unique as it was at the time. I'll just say that. But I thought she also had, I mean, and so one of the things, I don't know if I talk about this much. One of the things my mother was very, very, like, just all the time talking about is don't let it interfere with your grades. Like, I don't care if you play it, but don't let it interfere with your games. And I don't know if she ever took my books away. Like, that would have been like a grounding moment. She you know, I got grounded all the time because I was an unruly kid. I don't think I was, but whatever. Let it go, Sean, baggage. But she always, like, is, you know, you would have better grades if you didn't play as much D&D or you didn't focus as much on this thing. And it wasn't that. It was just school was never interesting to me at all. I was the guy that never studied but still got by. So I never was going to be the valedictorian. I was never going to be a 4.0. Shit, I was probably not even going to be a 3.0. Because the topics that were being taught were just not interesting to me. But and I remember I lived with my aunt, uncle, and cousin for a brief period, one semester in high school. I went to a suburb in Milwaukee where they live. And the reason I went to live there is because my sister was sick. So instead of having me kind of be alone at home for a whole semester and getting into trouble and not having anybody around, I don't know if you'd say I got shipped off to my relatives, but I got shipped off to my aunt and uncles, and my cousin's my same age, right? So there's like a couple weeks in age that between us. And why am I going into this? Oh, I lost my train of thought. There's a reason behind I was bringing this up. And I didn't play D&D there. Like I did, it was like a weird secret. But I know what it was. So my cousin and her circle of friends and my aunt and uncle were very strict, do homework, study, you got to get good grades. This is the deal. And you're inevitably going to college is the next step. That's what you do. And this guy wasn't having anything to do with it. And they got, my cousin would get frustrated because there were times when I would get almost the same on an exam or maybe a few points lower instead of, of a 92 like my cousin would get, I would get like an 89 or an 88, and they would spend 4 hours studying and I would spend like 30 minutes looking over material. It was just night and day. So grades were always this thing that was held over my head with the RPG space. That's the moral of the story. That's what I'm getting at. Is my mother said, play role-playing games, whatever. And there were times that she put restrictions down, like, no, you're not going to do that. You have to do your homework first. Or are you doing your homework? Why aren't you bringing any books home? That was always a big thing, too. Even though I carried a book bag around with me with role-playing books everywhere I went as a kid. Some of you might be the same as me growing up. I don't know. But there was the panic that we had heard about because there was always this negative connotation that had spread around. But in our community, I grew up in a town of like 1,100 people, maybe tops, 1,000 people. And there were like you on toes and feet, you could count the amount of people that played role-playing games. And there was not a generation, but there were older, and it was mostly guys. It was all guys in this area that I was. And the guys that I had heard that played, so when I got into it, the guys that I heard played were getting out of it. And they were like 3 years older. But there were still a few that were like a year older than me, like Jeff, some of you know of, and a couple other older individuals that came and splintered off from those groups to be the home group. And from our group, we had a couple other not offshoots, but it was kind of like if you drew a Venn diagram, it wasn't here's our core group, and then we'd have these guys and these guys. These guys went like left and they're gone out of the hobby. And like none of our parents in our immediate group, and even the ones that joined our games that were more casual gamers, like they would only play Top Secret. They wouldn't want to play D&D or Star Trek. So we tried to get them roped in when we wanted to play Top Secret. Maybe our DM was gone for D&D. So let's play Top Secret and we'll get John or Dan. Hey, John, Dan, you want to play Top Secret? Sure. Okay, cool. Right. But it was none of us were impacted by the Satanic Panic directly. Like I think there was always a buzz, there was always this stigma. But I will say this, and I've said it before, we had a pastor in town. So if I say our mascot, you might be able to find out where I grew up, which isn't a big deal. But our mascot was the Demons. Just fantastic mascot. Like who has the Demons as the mascot for their high school, right? That's in the 80s and before. Like I think my mother's mascot, she went to the same high school I did at one point in school system. I think it's been that for years. We had a pastor that wanted that changed. In the 80s, growing up. You know, he wanted it changed to the boys' sports would be Bucks and the women's sports would be Does. That's a whole nother topic, right? That would be the only thing that really got close to like the Satanic Panic piece, like people trying to, and it wasn't even being squashed. It was just like, I don't know. So it's funny that there are folks that, not funny, there are individuals that believe that it never happened, or it didn't happen the way it did. Some of us were, you're right, Hoos was like, it depends on the circles you were in, whether you were impacted directly. And there are people out there that will say, oh, it is very real, and I experienced it firsthand. Like, you know, my parents threw my books away. They were done, gone, burned. I had to play everything. I was allowed to play anything but D&D. So Ty says we started playing superhero RPGs more during that time. Yeah. Michael says I'm a preacher's kid. The Satanic Panic caused me all kinds of grief. Fortunately, my mother was a reasonable guy. My father was a reasonable guy who loved fantasy and sci-fi, so he played with us to see what it was about, which is great. Cool. Like, you know, at that point, as far as I'm concerned, Michael, if he played it and he's a pastor and he's like, no, you're not going to play it, I'd have more respect for that than just, I don't know anything about it, but what I've heard about it is bad and therefore it's banned. Those rule books turn off most people just for the size of them and the giant wall of text that they contained, for sure. Then Michael continues, he saw it was just a game and let us keep playing. Told folks to leave us alone. That's fantastic. That's great. Good to know. And we should be, when we talk about stuff like this, and I was mentioning like boomers earlier, and it was your generation that was trying to get us banned. It's not the boomer generation that it's not everybody in that generation. You gotta be careful not to lump everybody in the same thing, right? Like Michael's, father being a preacher, he allowed his Michael to play D&D, understanding what it was. So it wasn't every member of the clergy coming down on D&D and how it's evil and needs to be banned. So Victor says, same here, Sean. I just coasted through high school. I don't know if that's good or bad, but whatever. It's what it is. I have opinions. Who says I learned more about history, anthropology, sociology, and math from RPGs than I did in school. D&D, we talk about role-playing games and the benefits that come from them. And there are programs. I mean, we've got Paris Conti in Australia. That's his job. He works for his organization that he either founded or works for, is working with individuals with social anxiety and some other things, and uses role-playing games as a tool to get them over some of those things, or get them through it, or help them adapt and things of that nature. Hish, if you don't know who Hish is, Karu, I pronounce his first name wrong. Karu Hisham. Hish is what we go. He's an artist. He is in Malaysia, I believe, is where he lives, and he's a professor. He's studied in like Scotland, and he teaches. I think he teaches English, if I'm not mistaken, in Malaysia. And the way he does it is through role-playing games. And he's had talks and has been interviewed about it. He posts a lot of like his class and some of the things they've done and played, and so the benefits of role-playing games. People are like, I don't know how to get through to these kids. Like, isn't it? I don't know if that's a teacher thing that every teacher runs into. It's like hard to get. During the 80s, there were a bunch of teacher movies, right? Teachers. I don't remember the other ones. Teachers and some others. Breakfast Club, but I wouldn't consider that. And it was like trying to get through to students and getting them interested in either whether it's be STEM now or, history or social studies or whatever it is. And you wonder if you just said, hey, let's talk about this role-playing game thing, how much interest you might get in a lot of different facets of academia growing up, like in high school, grammar school, whatever. Like probability, like let's understand probability. So let's take it into an actual, something that you can actually apply to something. And, well, I don't know. What am I going to use it? Well, let's say you play D&D, or you're playing or you're going to make a role-playing game. But you want this mechanic system to work, but you want it to work enough so that the players don't get frustrated, blah, 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 blah. So what should we use as a mechanic? Do we use a D20? What does that look like? What are the probabilities? It's all math. I think our vocabulary probably was enhanced at that age, right? Even though I probably pronounced half the words out of the player's handbook wrong, because it's melee, it's not melee. Yeah, it's psionics. Psionics, not sonics. Psionics? I don't know. It's whatever. Michael says, agreed. I was very fortunate and thankful to my dad this day for it too. That said, I did get beat up in school for playing. It wasn't all roses. Yeah. Yeah. Kids are ruthless. They really are. Like Lord of the Flies everywhere. don't. And it's funny because some of you are like, I'm not a parent. Okay. Some of you are, and you're good parents. And yet, kids, man, I remember doing stupid stuff. I don't think I was ever like a bully guy, but because I got bullied and I didn't care for that. So I'm kind of an anti-bully dude. Jason says, our mascot was and still is the Bullets. Oof. Oof. That's a crickets. I should play the cricket sound effect for that one. And that's back in the day. Okay, right? Now? Oof. BK Dan, good to see you. Good mom, how to RPG. Yeah. Yeah, she's good. She's good. I still don't think, I think I got her to try, I tried playing and I got her a character once and yeah, it just didn't go anywhere. It was not going to be the family game back then. I can't remember if I tried to get my sister to play. Probably. She probably thought it was dumb and that was the end of that. So it was like my own thing. One of the schools I drive past on my commute are the Blue Devils. I think they have always had that name. Yeah. Oh, I'm really behind here. Zero Theory, good to see you. It's already cold and seeing you bundled up is making me colder. Good morning. Yeah, I was a little cool here for sure. BK Dan, the Satanic Panic was my gateway time and started then. Zero Theory, we got more pushback from other religious kids than parents. Victor says it was a vocal minority. There weren't many of them, but they were foul. Or foul. Loud. Probably loud and foul. Arrogant morning. No worries. You haven't missed anything. It's just talking about, we did the question, but it was kind of like if somebody, hasn't got a lot of traction, but if somebody asked you what your hobby was, how do you say it? I play D&D, play tabletop role-playing games, non-video games, pen, paper, dice. Like, I think there's a combination of different things that we come up with depending on who we're talking to. And that's kind of what we talked about. And then I diverted into some of my childhood, the Satanic Panic and some of those details. Who's was a high school coaster too. I think some of us were, not all. Kind of rebels. We're the smart nerds, right? Like, I don't need this crap. I already know this. Just talk about it in school. Talk about it, and I'll absorb what you talk about. Put it on a test, and I'll remember what you said. As long as you're an interesting individual, feeling good. What's up, Lou? Good to see you, man. Harry said I was too busy running AD&D daily in high school to do anything other than coast. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Pretty much. I mean, I had my rule book out all the time. A Dungeon or Dragon magazine, maybe. Maybe it was the Dragonlance novels. Maybe it was Tolkien. Just always, maybe a Circus or a Hit Parader magazine. I don't know why. Like, reading the latest on, I don't know, Dokken or something. Coup de grace 030. Yep, coup de grace. Vocabulary. Oh, too funny. Hey, Eileen, who is this guy? What's going on? Good to see you. Yeah. Ty says, my nieces know I am into RPGs, so they got me to run an ICRPG game for them. We're now starting a Discord game to keep it going. That's cool. Brian's ready to get to hit road, so I'm listening. Night, just no worries. There's a few people that linger and lurk, and that's fine. BK Dan, I personally say I pretend to be another personality for a few hours at a time and hope no one locks me up. Yeah. Yeah. Role-playing games, huh? That's what we're here about. Like, it's so funny. You look at the funnel of life, and all of us here, it all comes down to role-playing game. And we're all in different locations. Like, I think, well, how am I going to do this? I think I'm going to get interrupted later, so I don't want to, like, let's put the story later. Might put it up on the upfront, and then if we get to like all the print stuff and crowdfunding news, this could go on. This is and I don't know if it's going to be a topic that's all over the place. But I don't remember who. I should probably give credit, but somebody posted a video to Ben's feisty beast, aka questing beast.
A lot of D&D spaces are in an uproar this week due to
you probably hear that about D&D not needing WotC anymore. And I'll put a link down in the chat so you could reference this. And some of you have watched it already, and some of you haven't. That's okay. And rather than play the whole thing and kind of dissect it, I will try to sum it up as best I can, having watched it once and not taken any notes and was just waking up. And frankly, it doesn't even really have to, I don't have to quote Ben and what he said in the video. I think we can just, even based on the title of his video, D&D doesn't need WotC anymore, we can have a discussion all the way around that. Now, before we get into the video, the source of inspiration for the video that Ben came up with was this, oh man, let me refresh this because my links haven't come through, was an article on, I think, Dicebreaker, probably about the head of Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro saying that D&D is under monetized. Now, I haven't seen this blow up on social media necessarily. That doesn't mean anything because maybe I'm just not in tune with some of those details. It's under promotions, it is. Yeah, on Discord. And in short, I'll just kind of say what they quoted. So it was during an investor-focused web seminar. Chris Cox, okay, if you don't know who Chris is, he's the CEO of Hasbro. And then Cynthia Williams is the Wizards of the Coast CEO. And this is what they had to say. Cynthia specifically, Miss Williams. D&D has never been more popular, and we have really great fans and engagement. But the brand is really under-monetized. Okay, so if people are up in arms because she has said this, that you really shouldn't be. Because she works for a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Hasbro is actually publicly traded and has shareholders. Hence the reason why they're doing this in a investor-focused web seminar. So if we are thinking like, if we are in the, Metallica sold out mentality, we got to get our brains out of that thinking. Of course, Wizards and Hasbro has great passion for D&D in some degree, but they're a corporation. They have to make money. They have employees. They have shareholders. They have to increase things. It is hugely under monetized, and I don't think many of us, I don't think, would argue with that. I don't think so. I don't know. Why do you think those two were hired? For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And I brought this up before, that you could have the individuals there that have been running Wizards of the Coast since Wizards took over D&D, and that was a different time. That was like the 90s. And from the 90s up until recently, until before Cynthia and bringing Wizards underneath into the actual Hasbro fold, their digital initiatives sucked. 4th edition was not an overall success. And let's premise that, right? So if you liked 4th edition, that's great. then it's a game that you love and it's a successful game in your eyes. But as a corporation, it was not a success. It did not give Wizards of the Coast the windfall that 5e eventually would. Hell, I don't even know if it beat the 3-5 numbers. I'm not sure. Regardless, as time went on, there's social media, there's the internet, there's live streams, there's digital tools. The landscape of the vision of Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson is not even the same. It's just a completely different landscape. Time has moved on. Now, if you're an individual holding on to the olden days, that's okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think there's great products that have come from those days that are still carried on. Nothing wrong with that. They're great. Everybody can play what they want to play. But specific to Hasbro and Wizards and D&D, this is kind of the deal. It's just the deal. And in the video that Ben talks about, he mentions 2 quotes from Gary. And they're pretty different. It's funny how Gary, 1970 something Gary and 1982 Gary quotes like, hey, if you specifically, like, if you're playing D&D, make it your own, make the rules what you want them to be. And I would find it boring if everybody had the same experience. Fast forward, when money is important, trademarks are important, copyrights are important. You don't want somebody stealing revenue from your organization by putting out something that is very similar. Probably, just guessing. And you're making millions of dollars and selling thousands of books. It goes from that to, well, if you're not playing by these rules, then you're not playing D&D. As a matter of fact, if you change one rule within this, this book and this game, then you can't call it D&D anymore. So, anyways. Fireside Stream, I think they labeled it. Yes, maybe that's what it was. BK Dan says. 03, I just hope under monetized isn't meant to mean let's look at subscription-based options, which is the feel I get, but could just be reading between the lines. Oh, I don't think you can read. I don't know if, like, I think if you deny the subscription model, you are trending on the denial end of the scale, the spectrum, because it is definitely going to be there. It is D&D Beyond. That's what it is. You pay, whether it's for a year or a month, somehow to get access to certain things. I can't imagine they're going to give it away for free. And D&D Beyond is like one of the things, even in the article, that's, $140 million they paid for it. Like, that is going to be the core of how they're going to make this happen. As far as the game goes, but they're talking about 4 pillars, right, within this space, and the game is just one of them. The other pillars are like movies and book deals. The other one is like merchandise and licensing, like probably figures and duffel bags and the ampersand on everything. And then there's one other component I'm missing. Anyways, Ty says, I heard D&D cartoon might come back. As a matter of fact, Ty, I don't know about the cartoon specifically, but I know they talked about a TV series, the movie's coming out. They have prequel books coming in to tie into the movie, which is funny because if you read an article on the movie, they don't list the setting, but in the prequels, it happens in Neverwinter. Like the main character, the one that Chris Pine plays, the prequel of the book is going to be set in Forgotten Realms. So go figure. I don't, Anyways, the comic books, there is a set of comic books from IDW that's coming out based on the cartoons. They're bringing the cartoon back in comic book form. Arian says they whiffed utterly on digital, right? D&D Beyond happened outside of WotC. That would be accurate. Yes. Gleemax was an abysmal failure. And Here's the deal. They were making some money. Magic had carried WotC, I'm sure, for a while. And Hasbro bought them. They became a subsidiary. And that's how it was for a long time. And everybody complained because they said Hasbro is calling all the shots. I know from firsthand people that have worked at Wizards says Hasbro leaves them alone. That was back then when they were a subsidiary. And they had 3.0, 3.5. Then they talked about 4th edition, and at Gen Con they unveiled their digital initiative. And then they, at one point, called it GleeMax. It was all kinds of problems. It was vaporware. And it never got out the door. And then you had 4th edition come out, didn't do that well. Pathfinder supposedly outsold it. Still digital not being there, right? Pathfinder, Paizo had their own store. Like Wizards didn't even have that. So Paizo had even a subscription basis. So Pathfinder, you could pay, you could opt for PDF, print, or both. Like if you got the print, you automatically got the PDF. So it was like print or just PDF. Print PDF or PDF. And based on that, you would pay monthly and they would send you their adventure of the month. And when they put out these adventure pass, they were putting out 6 at a time. So, they were putting out 1 a month, 96 pages, high quality adventure paths. And they had done that for a while up until 4th edition came out, even for 3.0 or 3.5, Rise of the Rune Lords and a couple others. Then they had to change. But my point is that they allowed people to come to their store. And right now I could log in and download all my Pathfinder purchase stuff. It's still there. They haven't nuked it. As a matter of fact, I would say they probably need a facelift because I think it's the same exact interface that has been in place for the last 10 years. But I'll give Paizo props. They don't sell their stuff on drive-through. They have their own. And so they have that piece. They do now have tools in Demiplane, and Demiplane is, one of the individuals started D&D Beyond. Adam did. Bramford? Oh, God, sorry, Adam. But Adam was like probably the core engineer and major tech person that headed up D&D Beyond, and D&D Beyond got purchased by Fandom eventually, and then Fandom sold it to Wizards for $143 million or something like that. So my point is that Wizards didn't do it. They bought it. Hasbro also brought Wizards in and made them a division of the company. And then they changed all the leadership, and they came from Microsoft in the digital space. So this is all stuff I've hashed out before in previous streams. So what does it look like going forward? D&D doesn't need WotC anymore. And what does D&D look like? And before I mentioned, and Harrigan kind of alludes to it, where they even the CEOs, like, it's grossly under monetized. It's because you didn't have the right people. Now, and some people could say, "Oh man, I remember going to every single meeting and saying that every time." Like some of us have been in corporate America. I've gone to a meeting. I've always told them that. They just never did anything. And the minute I leave, boom, then it happened. Like they changed. They had an initiative, and everything. And who knows how that transpired, but for sure, like D&D should be its own brand, and that's what they're trying to make it. It's a lifestyle brand. So if you're not familiar with lifestyle brand, not that I am marketing genius by any means or have a degree or been a CMO or anything, but, a perfect example of a lifestyle brand, Harley Davidson, right? So what does that look like? You're selling the experience. I'm going to check on the chat here because Glee Max, yeah. Orcus Dorcas slept in morning. Good to see you. Michael says, if you listen to the original audio, she also mentions finding ways to create recurring payments for playing. That said, most on the convo about monetization was focused on the other things like movies, which I liked. Monetization chat, Orcus Dorcas, talking about Ben's video, the investor, seminar that Cynthia Williams and the CEO of Hasbro had, that said that D&D was under monetized, and they got a lot of buzz on, and it was put out by, well, shoot, I probably should put the link to the article here, by Dicebreaker. And then Ben, the Questing Beast, put out a video that kind of elaborated a little bit and put in his 2 cents. So we're just kind of, I'm all over the place with this. BK Dan, D&D will be 99% subscription based. They say they'll still print some books. It's inevitably going to be, it's just going to change. I don't know if that's better or worse. I guess it depends on what side of the fence you're on. Ty says, that's why I love Fate being pay what you want on drive-thru. Yeah. Sure. We're going to find other game. I think it's safe to say that everybody in the chat has played something else other than just D&D. Fair statement, I think. Like, anybody in the chat who loves D&D 5e or D&D in general, great. Awesome. But it is the landscape of that is going to inevitably change. Bullet. What's up, Bullet Catcher? Good to see you. I support WotC taking control of their product. I'll be supporting their monetization. WotC will be offering products for players. I'm looking forward to the new VTT. Good. I'm glad you're in the chat and speaking up. Thanks, Bullet. Much appreciated. Because I certainly don't. We kind of get caught in our own little bubble sometimes. So, this is not a bash on 5e by any means, for sure, or even a bash on their initiatives. Honestly, it's just is what it is and what they're going to be doing, whether we like it or not. Ty says, sometimes I think D&D is trying to kill creativity. Who says the same thing? Okay. That's not... Okay, hold on a second, you two. Whether that... how do I put this? Wizards is not trying to kill creativity. They are trying to make money. Like, that is the deal. That's the deal. That's the deal. Victor says, I had a Paizo sub for their Adventure Path line for a few years. Yeah, so did I, Victor, for sure. Zero Theory says, this is the scary part to me. Say I'm invited to D&D in real life. I show up to a table and they're like, oh, you got to have a Beyond account with a character there that costs dollars monthly. Yep. Yeah. Sure. And I need more context. Only Zero Theory, something to be concerned with, but who are you playing with? Like, is it your home group and they put that forward? A new group that you are searching for and they're like, hey, come join us. And you're like, okay. And then you get there. Like, I think it's not going to be any different than, hey, you only use core books for this. Hey, I run this game, but no other supplements. I prefer we prefer to play online versus face-to-face. I think it's just going to be a conversation of a component that's going to come into play. But 5th edition isn't going anywhere. But yeah, you're going to have groups that are going to go, yeah, we're in the D&D 5, the 1 D&D ecosphere, and everything is through their gated community. I don't know. Um, it, see, I'm not hugely into the video game space, but you know, there's games you can't. If you want to play this game, you have to get an Xbox. If you want to play that game, then you got to get a PlayStation. That's it. That's it. Like licensing, that's kind of the point of what they're trying to do. Is if Xbox owns this franchise, you have to buy an Xbox to play it. So they're banking on not their console, but the appreciation for the IP. Same thing with PlayStation. They have exclusive, they either created it or they have an exclusive deal with a publishing video game publisher that they only make it for their platform. Why? So you don't go over and buy an Xbox. So many things here. Victor says the interface was rough with Paizo. Yeah. Michael says it is a little concerning in one small part, but because of it, it is corp speak and actually full of good ideas. It could be what D&D needs to get. One of the things we get, maybe like we started out this stream saying, you know, if somebody asked you what your favorite hobby was, and you say, well, I like playing role-playing games, and they go, oh yeah, you play you like Scott, like Skyrim. My kid plays Skyrim. He's awesome, you know, he loves that game. No, not really. It's like we play with dice and at the table and books. Oh, like D&D. Maybe if we get out of this, I don't know, maybe it's still going to be that all the time, but I don't know. It's oof, 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 oof. Maybe this is what we need. I don't know. Would it be bad for the hobby? Or would it just solidify everybody plays D&D? Victor says Zero Theory. I can't see them cutting off players that way. They would lose more with a requirement model than they would gain. Phil says, I think Ben's video on D&D having a DM problem was equally as interesting. Is it in this same video? I don't remember if he said about DMs. Maybe he mentioned it in a sentence that they said during the investor, like he commented on the investor meeting that said that, I know that was brought up, like that many of the purchasers of products is Dungeon Masters. Like they're the ones buying all this stuff. That has never been a secret. I don't know why we don't all like rise up and go, we're unionizing because we're the DMs or GMs. We buy all this stuff. And here's the deal. We're going to start calling the shots. We have so much buying power and we're so type A, comparatively speaking. We just, some of us single-handedly keep companies afloat with the amount of purchases we have for that company. I don't, being facetious, of course, but yeah, that is not a surprise. And I think it's weird. So somebody will they'll get an Xbox or a PlayStation. I keep bringing up video games. I don't know why, because it's like a bigger industry for sure, bar none. And they just increased their prices. I don't even know what a game costs now. Is it $70 now? They buy a $70 game, it has maybe 40 to 80 hours of play, and then they're done. And somebody's either, the one person's buying it, maybe they're playing it multiple times, and they bought their console. I don't know. Maybe there's some gifting going on, right? Like, oh, Christmas came, I got an Xbox. Oh, and I got a game with it. So they never bought it. But what's the target demographic? It's not us. It's probably the younger crowd for sure. That probably aren't like, I got to have a book, or it's not a role-playing game. Like maybe there's a different mentality there. Some of them have brought up, I've talked to Harrigan, not to put him on the spot. He has kids, and I think he mentioned, I'm speaking on your behalf, Harrigan, I apologize, but it was something to the effect where, you know, these micro transactions aren't as big a deal to them as it is to some of us. Like some of us will look at it and say, I'm not buying that game because you got to buy if I got to build a character, well, then I got to pay for a weapon for them to have or a better weapon. And then I got to pay for this. And then I want to pay for that so I can get beyond the borders that you get for the free version. Kids don't care. Like they'll just kids, like, I don't know what that means. 10 to 20, 30 years old. I don't know. That's not as big a deal to them. So like the Fortnite they mentioned and League of Legends and some of the things that they do in that space, they even mentioned it in the Dicebreaker article. Is that the type of model that D&D is trying to kind of leverage? Sure. Maybe you don't even buy books. Like D&D Beyond has been set around a subscription and access to the books, and they're just in a web format. You don't have to do books necessarily as we think of them. It could be just options. You want these different options, then you pay for the option pack, the Ranger pack, and it unlocks all these things. GMs, Dungeon Masters will have their hands full, but then it goes back to, well, we're going to play D&D, D&D, and as long as whatever you bought is on D&D Beyond, then I'm good with it. Like, okay. Or does the DM set the options for their campaign in D&D Beyond? And does that cost extra money? Like, there's all kinds of different things that, I mean, there's a balance, of course, right? Wizards has to do this in a way that doesn't totally isolate their fan base at all. Like, oh, by the way, we're going to, charge $1,000 on. Everybody's like, screw that, bye. So they're having to balance making more money, recurring revenue, and not completely toss the baby out with the bathwater. That's the balance. And the bar may not even have to be that high. One person, say one player buys a player's handbook and they're done in the real world now. If you get a player's handbook on Amazon, on Amazon, say you get it for $30 and say they make 50% profit off of that. It's a one-time deal gone. But how do you get but you want to do cooler stuff, right? You want cooler stuff for your tune. Welcome, Harrigan. Because you just can't have one. Come here, Augie. I keep him near me, see? For times he thinks I'm a cat tree and claws me. So, oh man, where do we go from here? Phil says that's why the VTT will be so important. Micropayments for VTT player features, where the money is at. Listen to Phil. BK Dan, may love 5e, but have and still play Palladium. Right, sure. Victor says accurate statement. Whoa. I did. I scrolled right past it. Come on. Accurate statement. We've all played and mostly prefer games other than D&D. Okay, great. Yep. Orcus Dorcas, with veterans from Microsoft at the helm, it for sure will change. They would love to put D&D up as a game pass of sorts. That's their job and why they were hired. Yeah. Victor says WotC's trying to focus on their product. That's not killing creativity. It's just business. Yep. Like, if they got a VTT and you could place virtual Dwarven Forge, on a 3-dimensional virtual tabletop, and you map out that dungeon and you come up with the descriptions, that's not ruining creativity. It's just a different type of creativity. That's all. Yeah. So much to say. So many things. WotC is a business after all. The almighty dollar rules, BK Dan. Ty says, I will not touch D&D with a 1 billion-foot pole. You're not there. Hey, shocker, Ty. You're not their target audience. Eileen says, I have many, many feels as a retailer. Oh, yeah. Never mind the retailer channel. Holy cow, right? I don't know enough about retail, and Eileen would be able to shed some light. And I know she's probably driving and being busy and just listening, but I'm just wondering how much revenue D&D books come in to a store. And frankly, I know D&D is like, if you're going to do RPGs in an RPG store, the D&D books are there. They're just there. They're the most popular. They probably they move quicker. Your chances of selling them are higher. It just is. It's more of trying to move the culture to accept this. It's like accepting BMW to charge monthly for heated seats. Come on now, Huggy. Got enough. Go. Had this guy 3 times this morning. Still blessed. Hooked on that crack treats. Bullet catcher. Zero theory. In real life games usually throw dice. However, I'm sure there will be a DM sharing type subscription where the DM can share their content. This is the way now. Definitely. That's going to be a part. But it'll be, I think you'll be able to build characters as kind of a free thing. I mean, why wouldn't they? That's kind of like, hey, as my dad say, hey, that's how they get you. I don't think that's going to change. That would be my prediction, that they allow players to create characters on D&D Beyond. You will be limited to how many you can create. That is like present, right? Bullet catcher can correct me if I'm wrong. And then once the DM has, or a player has the library, it doesn't even have to be the DM. Like the DM player thing, that is for wizards and the money piece, they don't care, right? Necessarily. I shouldn't say that. They care, but they don't have to build everything so black and white. If you are the DM and you're just like all the bells and whistles, like, hey, I'm more apt, because they know that you're going to be more apt to buying all this stuff in the library. They'll have a DM pack, but you don't have to DM. Like you could be on D&D Beyond and buy all the books and never run a game. Because I have Ben up all the time. Everybody can see Ben. Go check out Ben's stuff, Questing Beast. So yes, bullet catchers right on for sure. And frankly, maybe even if the player's not open to chipping in to open up the amount of characters they want to have in their vault, maybe there's another option for another player to share slots. Wouldn't that be something, right? So I'm a player, I pay for the 10 slot or unlimited characters, and I can gift character slots to other players. Who knows? They can get so creative with digital anyway. There's no boundaries. There's no print. It's just development. Code. It's all code. Orcus Dorcas, for all the complaints, we have decades of material that will last well beyond many lifetimes. It's like having a giant garage full of cars and complaining you can't drive the latest model. Yeah, for sure. For sure. BKDM, maybe this transition is what is needed to bring the hobby into the 21st century. Possibly. Bullet catcher, I don't have any of the old cars, so I'm all for subscribing to digital content. Also, in real life games aren't available to me. Digital growth is exciting for me. We'll be spending my adult salary liberally. Well, and that's another thing too. A different focus on a different customer base. So when I said something about like the younger generation not being, and it does, younger, I shouldn't even say that because I don't know. It could be younger, older. The folks that are okay with spending money in microtransactions like games like Fortnite and League of Legends and things of that nature, and it's not a big deal. And I would say that even some of the 5e players that first found the hobby playing 5th edition that are younger than I am, and that's their first foray into the game, if they got into it when they are young, and I say young as far as like, I don't know, 13 to 25, maybe 30, they're going to start getting some disposable income, which has not been part of what they've been used to in their lives. So as they get out of high school and college and get jobs and, get into society, they're going to have disposable money. And they're the ones that probably are still in, hopefully, either adventuring into other games or sticking with D&D 5e or 1D&D and the Wizards ecosystem. And that's kind of their spiel. That's their shtick. It's probably not much different than some of the Apple users of the olden days with the Mac. And they've always been in the Apple ecosystem. They're just big Mac fans, Harley Davidson riders. I've always bought a Harley. I've always driven a Harley. Those things are what I think Wizards is trying to capture and put in a bottle to serve up to those individuals that appreciate that. And for those that don't want to do that, they don't ride Harley Davidsons. They buy Windows. They get into Android. They don't play Fortnite. I don't know any of them where their world is crashing. Let's see. As Real DM's Guild Union Local D101. Hee hee. Ty says, I tell people I play a superhero game where we tell a story using dice, like D&D. Couldn't help myself. Brandon says there is something like a GM's union out there. Is there really? Bullet Catcher, a GM union for what? Demanding name brand sodas to be provided at the tables? Well, hey, we should probably take that down, Bullet Catcher, as a point for the contract we negotiate. No big deal at all to younger generations. And Harrigan's referring, I'm a little catching up in the chat. He's referring to my thing about individuals being open to microtransactions. Come on. My chat's all bonkered up here. Ty says, World of Warcraft took 10 years of my life and I loved it, but glad now I am out. Okay. Harrigan says, just part of the economy and one they don't mind engaging with. Zero Therapy is shaking ground for sure. Bullet Catcher, D&D is for DM sharing their own content in the campaign. What if players can share their own content with DM approval for their character? That's possible. For sure. Bill says, my feeling is it should be a conversation between DM and player as to what's allowed for player options, but DM should have final say and not be a jerk about it. Yeah, we're going to see things kind of go like, here's the thing, and then all of a sudden there's these tangential things that start to get into things that aren't really about the core. For example, some will say, well, in real life, I show up to a table and they're all playing D&D, 1D&D, and you have to have a subscription. Yes, okay, but what is the problem? Is it the 1D&D piece, or is it just that group prefers to use these tools and you don't, so therefore it's not a match? Like it's like saying, hey, I'm not a big fan of D20 and this group's preference is to play like everything with D20. You gotta find a different group, or you gotta just put up or shut up, right? It's so some of the things that we start getting into gray areas and things of that nature isn't necessarily what Wizards of the Coast is doing in D&D. It's really what is our group wanting to do and use. Some will say, in order to play D&D, then you got to play by the D&D rules that are through D&D Beyond. I don't know. Maybe if you want to play that game, it's probably that game, right? And that game now isn't just that game isn't just this, right? When we think about D&D specifically, or any role-playing game, what do we think about? We think about the books. Do we think about the rules? Do we think about the system? Do we think about the world, the setting? Do we think about the tools that we use to play it? And then when we talk about those and we get a group together, all that stuff's got to be hashed out. Well, I don't want to play in a virtual tabletop. Well, that's what we do. Okay. We don't allow you to roll physical dice because we use a dice roller that everybody could see, and it's the digital one. Well, I don't like that. Okay. But I want to play with those friends of mine. But they want to do it this way. I don't want to do it that way. There'll be some decisions to be made. The funny thing is, it's not going to impact most of us at all. So that's why I like talking about this stuff is so funny. Wizards now charges $1,000 for you to play D&D. For the D&D players that love the property, yeah, it will burn them. I'm not saying that's going to happen, obviously, but they're going to have a choice to make. So the nice thing about the hobby is that it's not 1970 or 1980 when I think a few people ran into issues trying to put out stuff for the popular D&D game. Didn't go very well. And now we've got so many options on what we play and how we play it. It's never been more accessible. I don't know. Crazy. Let's see. Ty says, my dream, everybody walks away from D&D. See how it would change the hobby if that happens. Some would leave. If they left D&D, they wouldn't be in the hobby. Some of them. Some people. I don't think that's good. Why is that good? Ty, you got a vendetta against Wizards, don't you? Like, did they do something to you? Bullet Catcher agreed, Phil. No matter what options are offered to players, they can only work with DM buy-in. What happens when they remove the DM? That the player just chooses the options. And then you get AI to present an adventure. Yeah. Yeah. Harrogate says to Eileen, I think your comment about what happens to retailers is one of the big unanswered questions here. Unless they offer like special things to retailers, like you can only buy these specific things out of the retail channels. Very exclusive stuff. I don't know. Jason, this is all a drop in the bucket. Hasbro is in a crisis. Underperform rating by BOA. They are scrambling and trying to do damage control all over. UBS conference this month did not go well. BK Dan, I am Spartacus. I mean, WotC target audience. Arrogant says, car companies are moving towards subscription models. They already exist. Crazy. Orcus Dorcas, that is the problem with Ben's video. It's entirely a consumer-based opinion and doesn't take into account the retail aspects, but I feel that has always been the way with things such as this. Eileen says, D&D books are not bad revenue, and they're certainly the bulk of our RPG selections. No, I didn't. Yeah, no question, I'm sure. I've started mixing third-party 5e books in to get people to branch out, but yeah, Beyond has been a problem. Orcus, how does it affect me first, and the collateral damage thoughts come secondary, if at all? Hey, Mr. Frankhouse, how are you, man? Good to see you. Good to see you, man. Glad you could stop in on this fine morning. Bullet Catcher says, players will just create a second D&D Beyond account with another email address. Oh, God, I hope not. Hope it doesn't have to be like that. I'll just create another address. And then you're managing like 3 D&D Beyond accounts. Pencil Mage, good to see you. Got good turnout today. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Pencil Mage says, I was thinking how Paizo survives now that they are 3 years in, and what I came up with probably applies to D&D more. Do a free league thing. Buy licenses and use your rule set for that. Every tries hacking it. Eric says, love me some PF2E, PF2E, but they need to start hyperlinking and offering more of their new digital price point, which is Demiplane, right? Demiplane's flagship probably is Paizo Pathfinder, right? And that's how they're going to compete somewhat with D&D Beyond. Is you get the same person, Adam Branford, who created D&D Beyond, create the same tool for the rest of the RPG hobby. The only difference is he's going to be spread so thin, tackling all those different systems, unless he builds it in a way that can scale. And I'm sure if anybody's can do it, I'm sure it's Adam. Having said that, D&D Beyond is now not just going to be D&D Beyond the way we knew it. It is going to be the digital platform that Wizards will just be bolting everything onto, for sure. They will make that big thing bigger, richer, and it'll spin up faster implementations of features over time because it's an in-house product of Wizards now. So even Paizo, what else? Who's doing Vampire? Those folks are licensed with Demiplane. Free League is licensed with Demiplane. You know, those companies are going to be kind of at the mercy of Demiplane when it comes to the digital space. So if they say, well, we really would like this to happen, unless it's going to benefit Demiplane and a majority of other publishers, that's why I think Demiplane's almost like going to have to like get a council of publishers. Maybe that's, you know, they got a liaison they can lean on so they can come up with specific strategic roadmaps. Hello, Corp speak. That would make sense for everybody, players included, consumers, right? BK Dan, I'm not a Big Mac fan. Prefer Whoppers. Eileen says, okay, now I'm going to be driving, but I'm happy to answer questions regarding the retail side on Discord later on. What? Pull over, put Brandon behind the wheel. You chat with us, Eileen. Please? Just kidding. Orcus Dorcas, I would disagree with the younger generations about microtransactions. My son and his club, 14 to 18, can't stand microtransactions. Growing up in the prime of pay to win with video games. Okay, fair, sure. mileage may vary. Generalization, I have heard from one person. Now maybe it's not that, but they exist. I mean, Fortnite is not League of Legends. They're not small games. Like I am old and I do not play those, and I have heard of them. So they can be successful, right? Eric says strings groups don't have to be monogamous. I have groups in tabletop that enjoy different systems and styles of play. Yeah. So Eric, we're talking about, so Ben, Questing Beast said D&D doesn't need WotC anymore. It was relating to Dicebreaker's article about the investor call that Cynthia Williams and the gentleman CEO of Hasbro talking about D&D being under-monetized. So it's the buzz of the conversation today for the most part, right? So we'll get to something else or part of this in just a second about other games. And is it true? Does D&D need WotC anymore? A lot of D&D out there. Orcus, they absolutely hate the possibility of D&D going this path. They are the next wave of edition wars. 030, yeah, there are a huge number of TTRPG options, more games than time to play them, as the saying goes. There's going to be some ground shaking for D&D with one D&D on the third-party publishing side. Curious to see how that all shakes out. Yeah, retailers, third-party, all of which WotC doesn't. I mean, they care about retailers, maybe, but they may look at the retail chain and go, how much do they sell in retail? Because it may be okay, but it's probably not going to get them over the hump. Icky Dan, show me on this puppet where WotC wronged you. You talked about removing the DM. The new Hero Quest release did that. DMless D&D, I'm out. Literally, they removed me from the game. Ha, hey-oo. Bump. Zero Theory local game stores have been in crisis mode for years. DK Dan, my heart, my mind, and my wallet. So, Eric says at 030, they have to adapt like bookstores did, and add a bar, food, coffee shop, something else to make money off while people play and enjoy the space. Just reading through, guys. Debate about coffee shops, not as great as they wanted it to be, but at a bar, but a bar. They have figured it out, worked in them for years. Shoe sports, poker night, so on. Axe throwing. Orcus says, most of my friends who own a FLGS, RPGs have become a passing thought. They survive on Magic and Warhammer to a lesser degree. If they stop selling D&D books, most wouldn't. If they stop selling D&D books, most wouldn't bat an eye. Continues there, competing with Kickstarter, instant gratification, fulfillment, and Amazon, and so RPGs aren't really a primary focus, unfortunately. And Eileen says, okay, so there used to be a retailer exclusive products, and then Amazon came along and said, we don't carry anything unless you let us have that stuff too. And that was the end of that. Those alt covers used to be called retailer covers. Don't they still do that? They don't release the retail covers only to retailers? Is that something new? I didn't know that. Ty says, I always like the idea of a no GM game where everybody is a player, but I haven't found a system yet to do it right. Does it? Yeah. So let's get to the question. D&D doesn't need WotC anymore? Okay. So let's say WotC just says, okay, we're going to stop D&D. We're just going to make magic. Does D&D survive? What is D&D? Is D&D the Kleenex of RPGs? The market is flooded with stuff. Flooded. Like drowning flood levels. Why does my thing seem so low? Be up here? No? I feel like I'm... It's going to be I don't know. I don't know if the folks that are big on D&D, half of us aren't even their target audience. Most of us play other games. We're not. I think most of us also still are open to running D&D. It's the individuals that are hey, I've played D&D, I love it. What and some are gonna go, this is great. This is awesome. This is exactly what I want. Is it enough? Are there going to be enough of those individuals to satisfy Wizards? Because even if there's a group of individuals that love it, one D&D, they love D&D Beyond, they love all the digital space, they don't care about the microtransactions, whatever that is. They're great. Sign me up. I'm on board. This is what I've been talking about for the last 5 years. I wish they would have done this 5 years ago. Woohoo. Are they going to be able to keep Wizards afloat? And will they be able to gain more popularity? Because what could happen, which I'm sure Wizards is banking on, is we're going to put out we got those 4 silos, right? We got the game, we got the merch, we got the movies and books, and then we got, what is the 4th thing I keep missing? The 4th thing, 2, right? And if I'm curious about D&D and I've never played it, and say I'm like 10 years old now or whatever, and I've heard about it, maybe some friends were playing about it, and then a couple years later, I'm 13, D&D Beyond is like the ecosystem or 1D&D, and I go in there and I get all my stuff. They're not going to know that they're not going to have that baggage we have. Some of us have. So it's just going to be a thing. So can they get those folks into that ecosystem and continue to support it? So it's not only just keeping individuals within the D&D space, but it's also getting those new folks into that D&D space to also contribute. And if they can, then great. Then it'll be, I think, maybe a success for Wizards, right? I suppose. Eric says, well, since they are saying D&D isn't just tabletop role-playing games, and the majority will be digital games, movies, and shows, that's the one. Video games was the other silo. Thank you. I don't know if they need them. Yeah. True. Eric puts up a great point. Good point. Good point, Eric. If they're going to do merch, movies, books, comics, video games, maybe the role-playing game, we do it, but who cares? Like, it's a loss leader. Like, we make enough money on one movie for the year to cover all the game stuff. That is a very good point. Victor says D&D doesn't need WotC. Hasbro will continue to create D&D product. WotC is a hair's breadth from just being completely Hasbro. The distinction of WotC versus Hasbro doesn't matter anymore. Well, it doesn't, but you also have a CEO of WotC. So yes, they could get rid of some management there and just absorb it completely, and make it just a product of Hasbro. But I don't know. Eric says, lifers, new players, family teaching kids seem to be the majority. Ty says, Pathfinder has proven it will survive without D&D. Yes, but Paizo is not publicly traded. And Paizo was in a lot of trouble. Like if they lost Dungeon and Dragon, and then they were going to lose, I guess there was issues with the 4th edition game license. They pivoted, made their own. Victor says the WotC brand does not need to exist for the D&D brand to exist. Yes, I would agree. Agreed. Yes, sure. Yeah, anybody could pick up D&D. We've seen it. We've seen it happen. TSR, WotC, like it's gone on. Although D&D was on the cusp of going bye-bye back in those days. Eric says that is true, Ty. I think Paizo is just waiting in the wings for WotC's next big mess up to swoop in and capitalize. I don't know. Let them eat cake for sure. Michael Holland, the player base for 2E, Pathfinder 2E, continues to grow. If one D&D goes too far, Paizo is poised to strike and win. Moreover. Yeah. But Paizo, I mean, I guess the thing that they did was put out Kingmaker, the video game, right? They do some novels. I don't know, man. It's the D&D brand. People don't know Pathfinder. Pathfinder, what the hell's that? D&D is a beast. Beast. And we could say Pathfinder 8 4th edition's launch, but we don't know for sure. Eric says, like if the pillars hold up to D&D IP, but the real baseline drug is games and movies to the general audience, then D&D is for the deep divers. Get in. There's talk of WotC not expanding the OGL into one D&D. Make 5th edition stuff. They're So if you're a third-party publisher, which I am not, Sam Cobalt Press, and I make stuff for 5th edition, and one D&D comes along, and they say, nope, we're not going to OGL this. And I go, dang, now what am I going to do? Do you just continue to do 5e? Do you make your own game like Paizo? Do you make a 5.25? So you take 5th edition, you modify a couple things, you call it, I don't know, 14th age. I don't know. D&D the brand. There's Kawasaki motorcycles, there's Suzuki motorcycles, there's Yamaha motorcycles, there's Triumph, there's Indian. There's what's the ones that are in India that's big? You remember them? Start with an E, I think, don't they? But Harley Davidson, man, that is a brand. That is a beast. That's it. I wonder if that's the deal. Can they get there? Is it there already? Like, is it just D&D? What do you play? Role-playing games. I don't know what that is. Have you heard of D&D? Oh, yeah, I've heard of that. That's it. Play games like Pathfinder. Powered by the Apocalypse. Huh? What's that? Powered by the Apocalypse? Like powered by Doom? Like what? I don't understand. Eileen says Spaceballs the Lunchbox. D&D is as much licensing and merchandising as gaming right now. The comics are pretty popular at my store, and of course the movie's coming out. They're bringing novels out again too. Michael says the next Dragonlance novel and cover was announced this week, August 2023. Yep. Eric says, BK Dan, what I could say is that there's a short list for third-party publishers for the first wave of one D&D. Eric, so they could use third-party publishers to get more people into the WotC walled garden. Buy something from Cobalt Press. I mean, now here's the thing though. Wizards could, Eric, I don't know if you know or not, Wizards could say, we're going to give Cobalt Press, who's the other big 5e publishers? Cobalt Press, insert other 5e provider, another 5e licensor, whatever, creator. And they're going to create the content for D&D Beyond. They're going to do some of the adventures. Think about it. Dragons of Tyranny were done by, a lot of the big modules weren't done by Wizards staff. Some of them were even done by, even the most recent ones some of them were done by freelancers. There is very little, I don't even know the team that is involved with creating some of the big monster adventures that they've put out at Wizards of the Coast. They've had Wolfgang and team put those out. Tyranny of Dragons, Cobalt Press, the Citadel one recently, freelancers, conglomerate. I don't know. I can tell you the parties you would expect to be on the list are not right now. Oh, interesting. Sounds like an interesting power play. Eric says their cut is very large that they want from people who make one D&D. Obviously, the details aren't concrete. Sign the contract yet, but it's scary. Well, hey, you want to? Who's the other one? Who's Merwin associated with? Can't remember. Anyways, I don't know. Frank House is Sean. Yeah, I've seen the short list that is currently up. It's 30% cut right now. Like they want 30%. The third party wants 30, or WotC wants 30%. I'm surprised they don't want 40. Honestly, hey, you want our stuff? We're gonna take it out of drive-through and you're gonna put it on our D&D Beyond. I don't know, man. I don't know. It is going to be an interesting time for sure. and some of this isn't going to impact us, but it might impact us as things go on. As new players kind of, here's how it'll impact us. They're like, I don't know. I'm not their target audience. It doesn't impact me. I'm not going to give them any of my money. But are those individuals going to move over to the other games that some of us enjoy? And then we bring them with open arms. Come, try this. You've played D&D. It's a little different, but you'll probably enjoy it. Maybe you won't. That's okay. Because they're going to lose some people. They may also gain quite a few. So we'll see whether it's a net gain or a net loss. WotC wants 30% of the cut. They're unwilling to do it. I mean, even Apple's under fire in the European Union, and they're going to back off on that. So we'll see. But is it a monopoly? Somebody throw the monopoly word around with WotC. I don't know. Because it's all IP, right? Not rules. If I get one D&D and I know the rules and it's like in the trade language, not a big deal. Back in the day when I played in my early years of junior high and high school, we have basically one set of books and never used the modules ever. Yeah. You are the customer that is pissing WotC off, Ty. And every other game company, honestly. But I know you don't do that anymore. But kids don't have disposable income. Of course, that's what we did. Yeah, Eric says, I think big third parties that have a big following with great designers, they make their own system or rally behind another system. Yeah, that's been the MO, right? I mean, even Monty Cook made 5th edition stuff. Even Free League made 5th edition stuff. So interesting times indeed. Interesting times indeed. So what did I mark this? No, it didn't go in here. Oh, here we go. Dorcas, meh. In the end, WotC can stop producing RPGs today and people will still continue to play from here on. It's just shame that would be the end cap to the D&D legacy. Well, it's not, because they're going to put out all kinds of stuff. D&D. The death of D&D. Let's spread that rumor. Like, D&D is going to die. No, it's not. All right. Let's get into some other stuff. I don't know. Kim Mohan, known for work at TSR and Wizards of the Coast, editor-in-chief of Dragon Magazine, author of the AD&D 1E Wilderness Survival Guide, and much more, passed away yesterday, which would have been this past Monday, at the age of 73. Joined TSR in 79, became editor-in-chief in Dragon Magazine in 1989, joined Gary Gygax's new Infinity Productions in 86, but later returned to D&D, working on 3rd edition at WotC, and retired in 2013. You've been around, Kim Mohan's name. So thanks to all his contributions, and just wanted to acknowledge that. Thanks for the folks at EN World putting it out there. I think I saw it in a tweet or something too as well. So, let's see. Print news. Dragonlance. DCC. Came the Monster of Midwinter. Who wrote this? There is Holiday Module, Level 2, by Brendan LaSalle. Brendan LaSalle wrote this. Softcover adventure module, second level holiday adventure set in the Shutter Mountains. The PCs might just learn the true meaning of the season. Presents the town of Star Notch, expanding the Shutter Mountains and giving PCs as possible new base of operations. Town keeps the sovereign night more joyful and true than any other in all the Shutter Mountains. It is also beset by a host of evils so horrible as to try the faith of honest folk. When a group of fiendish creatures strikes at the town's heart, it's up to the PCs to vanquish an ancient evil and restore the light of the divine to the hills. Features equal parts role-playing opportunities, battles against savage monsters, and celebrating the season. Comes with a scratch-off handout that can permanently grant PCs new and improved abilities, contacts, and in-game benefits. Also includes several new monsters and magical rights. Check that out if you're a DCC aficionado. Merkborg, softcover, The Plague Crypt of Helvet. Dark fantasy adventure. When a horrible plagued beast invades Galgenbeck, the party takes a bounty to seek out the source in the doomed forests of the north. They happen upon a disease demon and plague crypt that may be more trouble than they bargained for. Spoilers. Eternal Night of Lockwood. Zweihander. Grim and Perilous. Gotta unload my Zweihander book. I don't think I'm gonna play it. Then we're gonna get to the table. 10 interconnected adventures taking characters from basic to advanced tier. PCs are citizens of Airtold, drawn into a pitch-black web of urban conspiracy and rural horror, spanning the gloom of the 6 boroughs and into the ancient Lockwood. Anybody playing Zweihander? Is that a bigger adventure than normal? I thought most DC adventures were $9.99, or am I wrong about that? Most DC adventures don't have scratch-off stuff in it, would be my guess, Michael. So it's probably a little bit of a special one. Eric, still need to play some DCC games? Oh, yes. Indeed you do. I think you would enjoy it, man, quite immensely. Question at Sean. Yes. Is EN World the only source nowadays for TTRPG news? Yeah, pretty much. Well, you can, I mean, I check out, there's one other place that I check, which is Tabletop Gaming, which is at Comic Book, right? Comicbook.com has a list, but it's all the same. They get into more board games, card games. I check this here. Critical Role, APs. But there isn't, like, I don't know of a source of decent RPG news. And I would be more than happy to get that up and running, but that's a lot of work, man. These guys are kicking out this stuff every day. I don't know. It is the best news aggregator that I'm aware of, but not the only one. Yeah, I don't know. It's consolidated. Obviously, they have a bend a little bit, I think. I gotta say though, EM World has grown over the years. Like, it used to be just D&D all the time. Well, they put out 5e stuff too. Encyclopedia Arcana by Arion Games. Oh, really a softcover condensed core rulebook for Advanced Fighting Fantasy, 2nd edition. So all you advanced fighting fantasy people, there you go. Cool. Look at this, Star Wars. What? FFG. Oh, Edge Studios, Lords of Nalhutta. That's a reprint. So that's not new, but it is a reprint. The second printing of A Hut Space source book covering the galaxy's slimiest and most notorious gangsters. I don't remember if I have this one. I think I do. That's it. For print news. What else? What else? Bear with me. Print news. News digest. Should have put print news. Yeah, I don't know, Eric, if there's any other probably like where there's a lot of indie games. There's a ton. Where is it all though? I don't know. Here's the digest for some of the news. All this, it's all EN World stuff, I think. No, this is just the bullets. So this is the why is it so big? That is a big picture. Whoops, and you guys aren't even seeing it. Classic Dragonlance, a Dungeons and Dragons novel, Dragons of Fate. This is the second one that's coming. I haven't read the first one. I own it. This is coming out in August. Somebody mentioned it. Like Michael, or I think might have mentioned it. Coming out in August 2023. Second book in the Destinies trilogy. They also have a new cover of the reprint of the Tyranny of Dragons adventure. Wow. Did they get that many cells that they are reprinting it again? I don't know. Okay. Saturday Morning Adventures, D&D, IDW comic book. What is this guy's arm doing? Is that his arm? What is that? I don't understand. Is his leg? Is it his leg? I don't know. It's weird to me. Anyways, the 1980s D&D cartoon comes the comic books. 4-issue miniseries celebrates the 40th anniversary of the animated series with a thrilling Lost episode exploring the world of D&D. Well, that's great. With David Boer, Canto, and all new Firefly. Oh, excuse me. And Sam Maggs of Rick and Morty, Every After, Critical Role, The Mighty Nine Origins. The art from George Cambadais, from John Carter of Mars and The Flash. Roll20 announced the new community content programs rolling out for DM's Guild and Pathfinder Starfinder Infinite from the announcement. Hello, Roll20. What is going to be going on with you in this whole grand scheme of things? Like there is such an ecosystem around D&D. Man, I'm telling you, there's going to be some places that aren't going to be around after this. So yeah, Roll20 announced new community content programs. So the community content programs allows fans to create and sell their own content using the official content published by various IPs. Through the program, you will soon be able to create and sell your own content for use on Roll20. Create Roll20 art packs, token marker sets, adventures, rulebook add-ons, VTT play aids, and product packages that will be listed and sold at supported marketplaces such as DM's Guild and Pathfinder Infinite.com. Fans who purchase your content can also unlock it for play under their Roll20 account as part of their purchase. Wait a minute. Pathfinder, I am mistaken. Pathfinder does not only sell their stuff online. They do have their own DM's Guild, right? Eric Frankhouse on one bookshelf, right? The reason I say right is because I'm not in that space and I've totally forgot about that. I think, yeah, isn't that Pathfinder Infinite? Yeah, this is all one bookshelf. Derp. I apologize, and this is a correction to my earlier statement. But all my stuff is not on here. Mine is on Paizo stuff. What was I going to say? Shoot. Oh, Roll20. They are part of OBS on one bookshelf. So they're, I think, all one company now, right? Yes, they're making Star Wars. They're not really making anything new, Eric. They're just reprinting some books. That's all. Paizo team announced several staff moves for both Pathfinder and Starfinder. Pathfinder team has been restructured into 3 teams: narrative team, rules and lore team, and the Starfinder team. Interesting. That's nice. It's good to know, right? Narrative team was announced this week with development manager Linda Zayas Palmer, creative director James Jacobs, who's been there forever, senior developer John Compton, developers Jessica Catalan, Josh Foster, Vanessa Hoskins, and Shay Snow. I've been so out of the Paizo loop that some of these names are not recognized by me. Not that means anything, but I used to know like all the people involved in all this stuff. Eric, you probably know them intimately, I'm guessing. This team will be responsible for all Pathfinder adventures, including standalone adventures, Adventure Pass, Pathfinder Society, organized play adventures. Starfinder team has also been announced, including managing director Thurston Hillman, senior developer Jenny Jarzabski. Sorry, Jenny. Developer Dustin Knight. This team will be responsible for everything Starfinder. Okay. The Last Gasp. This is by Darrington Press. This is the Critical Role game from the makers of Critical Role. Dramatic storytelling game. I remember reading this. Pits 2 players in one-on-one duel in the genre of your choice, from swashbuckling sword fights to kung fu showdowns to gunslinger quick draws to sci-fi laser battles. Focus will be on the emotional story between the 2 combatants and exploring the heart the story behind the fight. 40-page rulebook, 20d6 edge dice, 2 player boards, 9 jumbo map cards, 12 pre-made characters, and 2 blank character sheets, drama deck, objectives, and stance cards, tokens, and a partridge in a pear tree. Coming out in March. Merch 2023. Star Trek Adventures Incident at Krav 3. Modifius continuing to put out Star Trek because they still have that license. The adventure takes place in between the original series and the Next Generation era, with the players taking on the role of a Klingon crew in the early days of the alliance between the Klingon Empire and the Federation. Ooh. Here's some news. I don't know if it's news. Actor Henry Cavill. What's that called? I knew I could get him to come out of the shadows. Is Gabe here? Crickets. So let's talk about Conan, Modifius, and how they own Star Trek and lost the license to Conan. What? Actor Henry Cavill has had an interesting few weeks. So he is being replaced for the Witcher series starting in season 4. I think, what's his name? His brother, right? Thor's brother. Then he will be returning as Superman before DC announced he would not return as the next Superman. I don't know. So, but anyways, he is going to be the star and executive producer of a series adaptation of Warhammer 40K. Interesting. Amazon is in final negotiations for the rights to the series from Games Workshop after months of negotiation. There you go. Though no other actors nor showrunners or writers have been announced, the news comes a day after actor and gamer Rahul Kohli tweeted, "Hey Henry, screw it, let's make a Warhammer movie limited series. Kind regards, Rahul." While Doctor Strange in Black Phone screenwriter C. Robert Cargill replied, "Look, guys, I might know a writer who would be into that. Maybe y'all should brainstorm in his garage. Best, Cargill." Kickstarter announced this week that the platform has now passed the $7 billion mark in crowdfunding since the site launched, and that 20% of that came from tabletop games. Oof. Icebreaker confirmed that $1.57 billion raised on the platform came from tabletop games, which accounts for 50% of all gaming content, 20% of all funds raised on Kickstarter. So since the site launched in 2009, God, it's been 13 years. Unbelievable. There have been over 36,000 projects launched in the tabletop gaming category. 36,000 projects. With around 23,500 successfully funding. It's a 65% success rate. They did the math for you, folks. Significant amount higher than the 40% average across other categories. That's crazy. Eileen, I'll watch it for Henry Cavill. Is he going to become the next Bond? There's talks about that too. I think that's still in the mix. Time to head back to the legal quagmire of TSR. LLC versus Wizards. Oh, goodness gracious. This thing. For those looking for in-depth coverage, the link goes to the co-host page, Kim Winson, who goes into detail on the ruling. Ugh, I don't even want to read this. Just check it out if you want. Did I put a link in there? I'll re-link it. You guys can view this news on the old TSR, new TSR, whatever TSR, suing WotC, vice versa. I don't know. Crowdfunding. I don't want to go through what do we go through crowdfunding? We'll do it like an abbreviated, because sometimes we come across the nugget I'm not aware of. Side reels, charting Fate's course. This is an Exalted 3rd edition. So if you're an Exalted fan, you might know about this already from Onyx Path. Check this out. Side reels are being working to shape creation from behind the scenes. So that's funded. Next one, Heroes of Mythic Americas, the 5th edition. You know it's funded, right? It is. The next one, Misery and the Deck of Ruin and Revelation. Merkberg. It's a system for injecting his will into your game. Merkberg. If you go to this campaign page, you'll see a character named Egg. That is not me. I'm not part of this project. So Egg is the author of this page on Ian World. So check it. Best of 2 projects in this list that feature work from Jared Nielsen, Zach Goins, and Janine Hempy, as well as other creators. This one is for Merkberg, while the other is a mothership offering. In this dying fantasy world, you get even more prophecies of Veru and the calamities that they unleash. Because it's metal. Way funded. Scrap Rats Strikes Back, Sci-Fi Epics Mothership 1E. $4 for 3 PDFs. What? Second of 2 RPGs on this list that include work from Jared Nielsen, Zach Goins, and Janine Hempy, and more great creators. Scrap Rats are back with the 2nd and 3rd adventures in their trilogy. for a few credits more, The Good and the Bad and the Scrappy, as well as Mothership Bestiary, the Ophion Ossuary. Ugh, I can't talk. I need water. Imagine a mothership solar system entirely populated by an empire of parasites animating the dead. That's funded. Like 954%. Next one, 5e book by EM Publishing called The Weather Outside is Frightful, Chilly D&D Resources. Stay frosty. That's funded. Play as the bad guys. Villainous Champions of the Shadow Keep for 5e by Dream Plots. Funded. I'm telling you, 5e is just stamp 5e on it. Funded. The Wilderkind from Dueling Dragon Magazines. This is on Indiegogo. D&D, 5th edition in Castles and Crusades. Ooh, the question here is, it's 5e, but it's on Indiegogo. What happens, folks, when you combine that? Does it fund? And it's probably not going to tell me because they don't have it. Let's see if it's funded. We'll just go over there because they don't have the cool kick track embedded thing. 51% of $600 flexible goal. Yeah, Kickstarter, man. They're a beast. Next one, Julian K. Jarbo. Inscrutable Cities. Funded in an hour. An original system. Core rulebook, $30 for the PDF. Plus shipping and handling for print. Inspired by Italo Calvino's Invisible Cities. Plays a traveler arriving in a dream city where you record your discoveries in your journal. As a solo journaling RPG, you explore the city, learn its eccentricities, thank you, and write about them using this original rule set. So solo exploration RPG experience. There you go. Crowdfunding. What else do I have? Probably nothing. No, that's all I have. BSRCon. BSRCon, there are still events. People are submitting. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. Not going to BSRCon? Why not? Why? I mean, look me in the eye and say why you're not going. How many events we got here? We got events. We got all kinds of events. We got 65. Paint rooms probably 3. And I think 2 happy hours. That would put me at 5 probably. So we have about 60 events. 60? Oh, I think we had less last year. Plenty of games open. Stars with, and like a variety all over the board. There's a good seminar called Ace Role-Playing Games Club Introduction on Saturday at 1 p.m. that gives you advice. The gentleman who's running it gives advice on how to start a role-playing game club. BSRCon, Eric, for you not in the know, is in January of 2023, the weekend of the 20th, 21st, and 22nd, all taking part online. I don't know if we need GMs as much as we need players. Like there's a lot of games that are still needing to be filled. So if you don't get an opportunity to play and you only run, this would be the one to the go-to. Got a paint room, $10 for the badge. Half of the proceeds are going to go to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. It's a charity. Starts Friday. I think it starts at like ass crack of dawn, 4 in the morning or whatever. International folks want to take part. Early enough for them. It goes through Sunday. And all, whether it's Discord or Zoom or Skype or whatever, list your platform. It's all virtual. Don't have any real, maybe Eric Frankhouse could be a guest of honor. But there's some of the games that are still open, just to give you some idea. Saturday is hugely loaded, obviously, but you've got, let me put in the rules system. Virtual audio, video, rules set. Here we go. Aegon, Blade Runner. Well, I'll probably hide the ones that are actually full. Probably hide those. Don't show sold out. Savage Worlds, For the Queen, Harnmaster, 5e, Savage Worlds, Stars Without Number, Savage Pathfinder, The Mecha Hack, Dread / Grim Hybrid, Storyteller System, Pirate Borg, Classic Traveler, Lady Blackbird, Age of Sigmar Soulbound, mentioned Harnmaster, Cyborg, Call of Cthulhu, Burn 2d6, an original system. Protocol Squared. Got a lot of Savage Worlds popping up. Dicey Tales, Breakers, Dialect, Feng Shui, and Inspectors. Like, per game, probably the most diverse system offerings ever in convention history. I firmly believe that. Run a game, man. If you want to run, I'll make it a premium game run by Eric Frankhouse. It's up to you, man. Plenty of stuff going on. You want to do a panel? Do a virtual panel. Eric, I know you do a ton of streaming. If somebody wanted to learn more about streaming, that is completely wide open, and it's only an hour of time. So you take up your set. Here's the deal, Eric. I'm going to pitch myself to Eric here. You got to buy a badge to run an event. So I don't know if it's worth the $10, but half of it goes to charity. So $5. Here's the trade-off, right? Here's the marketing prospectus that Sean's going to convey to you verbally. $10, 5 of it goes to charity, makes you feel good. The other $5, well, you get folks that you schedule a seminar Saturday afternoon for 1 hour. So you're out 1 hour at a time, and $5, $10 actually. But you're trading half of that for good feels. You get folks that come to learn about how you stream, put on a good stream, your setup, whatever. And then you get those folks that go over to your channel, and then they subscribe, and then you earn your $5 back. Your $10, whatever. I think it's win-win, man. I don't even know why you wouldn't do this. Maybe even run two seminars. One hour, another one an hour, 2 hours. Just saying. Get exposure. I mean, my goal is to get all these games filled. I don't know how I'm going to do it. Probably just pound social media. Everybody online in this chat, if you hang out on Discord servers and you think it's a good community and you're like, hey, got this online convention, could still use players. Here's some of the games being offered. Bring them on in. Everybody's welcome. It's coffee. Yes. Tell me more. I'm interested. Yeah. You could even do an hour seminar and run a game and stream it. Just make sure if you do stream, you put it in the description so the players are aware. So you could do the seminar. Hey, just if you liked what you see and you want to know how it's in practice, I'm going to run a 2-hour shot, one shot. I'm always thinking, man, trying to anyway, before I can't. Rumor in the third-party world is Savage Worlds may be what publishers rally behind. Really? Well, I think Shane is so liberal with that license. And if Savage Worlds is rabid enough, I mean, it's got Savage Pathfinder, Savage Rifts, doing quite a bit. Victor says, I shared it in another Discord who might have interested people. Thank you, Victor. Appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, even if we get 2 or 3 people, it's really about like GMs. Like we got a good turnout of game masters, and they're still putting game registration ends like the night before the convention. Like people can add games all the way up to that point. I'm not shutting it off. But definitely like players not having the opportunity to play different games. This is the deal, but it's not in person, which is, you don't have to pay for a $65 badge. You don't have to pay for a $500 to $600 plane ticket. You don't have to pay for a hotel for 3 nights at, a couple $100 a night. Like it is win-win-win, man. We got some good game masters. So, gonna make the move to YouTube. There you go. Anyways, what time? We're like 2.5 hours in. Yeah. So we're going to hang it up. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Some new faces I don't see very often. Thank you for showing up to the live stream. I hope you continue to come back. I try to do this every Saturday, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Central Time, depending on what's going on. And if you're interested in like, hey, I think you might want to talk about this, more than happy to take suggestions at our Discord, which you can find, ironically enough, strangely enough, at gmmastermind.com/Discord. That'll get you there. I should probably find an How RPG link. Maybe I should put it down below to join our Discord. But yes, and then these people here for supporting me through Patreon. Thank you very much. So I'll let you go. If I don't see you through the holidays because you're busy and you can't show up, totally understandable. Have a happy holiday season, wherever you may be, whatever choice you have in taking it easy this end of December into the next year. Make sure you play some games. That's what I can say. Play some games. Take some time for yourself. And remember, be a positive force in the tabletop RPG hobby. Oh, don't forget, like, dislike, or subscribe. Thank you very much. See you.